What happens when one of music's most beloved legends sits down for what should be a simple promotional interview, only to face the most disrespectful treatment of her entire career? In just 44 seconds, a single condescending comment would expose the true character of a news anchor and spark an unforgettable television meltdown that left viewers speechless. If you want to hear more incredible stories like this, make sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments what you think about how this interview went down. The ABC News studio was buzzing with excitement. Chaka Khan, the queen of funk herself, had agreed to sit down for what everyone expected would be a warm, celebratory interview about her upcoming tour. The legendary singer, dressed elegantly in a flowing black outfit with her signature style, settled into the guest chair with grace and poise. Across from her sat Deborah Roberts, the ABC News correspondent known for her serious journalism background. The cameras rolled, and Roberts began with what seemed like standard pleasantries. "Welcome to ABC News. I'm here with the legendary Chaka Khan, who's embarking on what she's calling her farewell tour. Chaka, thank you for joining us." Chaka smiled warmly, her voice carrying that unmistakable soulful tone that had captivated audiences for decades. "Thank you for having me, Deborah. I'm excited to talk about this tour because it really means everything to me." But Robert's next question immediately shifted the tone in an unexpected direction. "Now, Chaka, you've been in the music business for over 50 years. At 71, don't you think it's about time you stepped aside and let younger artists take the spotlight?" The question hung in the air like a thick fog. Chaka's smile faded slightly, but she maintained her composure with the grace of someone who had navigated countless interviews throughout her career. "Well, Deborah, I don't think age determines when an artist should stop creating or performing. Music is my passion, my life's work. As long as my voice is strong and my fans want to hear me sing, I'll keep doing what I love." Roberts leaned forward, her expression becoming more confrontational. "But surely you must realize that the music industry has moved on. Your sound, your style, it's very much rooted in the past. Don't you feel like you're holding on to something that's no longer relevant?" The studio grew noticeably quiet. Even the camera operators seemed to sense the tension building. Chaka's posture straightened, and her voice carried a hint of steel beneath its velvet surface. "My music has influenced generations of artists. The songs I've recorded, the standards I've set, they're timeless. Music doesn't have an expiration date, and neither do the artists who create it with genuine heart and soul." Roberts wasn't backing down. She shuffled through her notes with an air of superiority that was becoming increasingly obvious to everyone in the room. "That's an interesting perspective, but let's be honest here. When was your last real hit? When was the last time you were truly culturally significant? The younger generation doesn't even know who you are." The words hit like a slap across the face. Chaka's eyes flashed, and for the first time in the interview, her legendary composure began to crack. Her voice remained controlled, but the hurt was evident. "Deborah, I've sold over 70 million records worldwide. I've won 10 Grammy Awards. I've been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. My influence on music spans multiple generations, and artists today still sample my work and cite me as an inspiration." But Robert seemed determined to push even harder, as if she was deliberately trying to provoke a reaction. "Yes, but that's all in the past, isn't it? What have you done lately that matters? This farewell tour feels more like a desperate grab for attention than a genuine artistic statement." The insult was so blatant, so unnecessarily cruel, that even the production crew began exchanging uncomfortable glances. This wasn't journalism. This wasn't even a proper interview. This was something else entirely, something that felt personal and vindictive. Chaka took a deep breath, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of decades of experience dealing with disrespect and discrimination in the music industry. "I came here today to talk about my music and my tour, not to defend my legacy to someone who clearly doesn't understand or respect what I've contributed to this culture. My fans know my worth, the industry knows my worth, and I know my worth." Robert scoffed audibly, a sound that was picked up clearly by the studio microphones. "Your worth? Chaka, let's talk about your worth. You're here promoting a tour that's playing smaller venues, not arenas. You're not selling out stadiums anymore. Doesn't that tell you something?" The cruelty in Robert's tone was unmistakable now. What had started as questionable journalism had devolved into something that felt like a personal attack. Chaka's hands gripped the arms of her chair, and her voice began to rise slightly. "The size of the venue doesn't determine the quality of the music or the love of the fans who come to hear it. I choose intimate venues because I want to connect with my audience, not because I have to." "Come now, Chaka, we both know that's not true. You're playing smaller venues because you can't fill the big ones anymore. Your time has passed, and everyone knows it except you." The studio fell completely silent, except for the hum of equipment. The camera operators zoomed in instinctively, sensing that something explosive was about to happen. Chaka Khan, one of the most respected artists in music history, was being systematically torn down by a news anchor who seemed to have no understanding of respect or basic human decency. And then Roberts delivered what would become the comment that changed everything. Roberts leaned back in her chair with a smirk that suggested she was about to deliver what she considered the ultimate blow. Her voice dripped with condescension as she prepared to cross a line that should never be crossed. "Chaka, let me ask you something. Do you really think people are coming to your shows to hear new music? Or are they just there for nostalgia? Are they coming to see an artist? Or are they coming to see what's left of one?" The question was so deliberately cruel, so calculated to wound, that it seemed to suck all the oxygen out of the room. The production assistants behind the cameras looked horrified. This wasn't an interview anymore. This was character assassination disguised as journalism. Chaka's face went through a series of emotions in the span of seconds. First shock, then hurt, then something much more dangerous. Her eyes narrowed, and when she spoke, her voice carried a power that reminded everyone exactly who they were dealing with. "What's left of one? Let me tell you something, Deborah. What's left of me could fill 10 of you. I am not some faded star begging for attention. I am Chaka Khan. I am a living legend who has paved the way for every female artist who came after me." Roberts actually laughed. She laughed at Chaka Khan. The sound was sharp and dismissive, cutting through the studio like a blade. "Living legend? Is that what you tell yourself? Because from where I'm sitting, I see someone clinging to past glory, desperately trying to stay relevant in a world that's moved on without her." That was it. That was the moment everything changed. Chaka Khan slowly rose from her chair, her full height and presence suddenly filling the entire frame. Her voice, that legendary instrument that had moved millions of people around the world, began to resonate with a power that made everyone in the studio understand exactly why she was called the Queen of Funk. "You know what, Deborah? I've sat here and listened to your disrespectful comments with more patience than you deserve. But I will not sit here and allow you to diminish my legacy, my contributions, or my worth as an artist and as a human being." Roberts seemed stunned by the transformation. The poised news anchor facade began to crack as she realized she had pushed too far. But instead of backing down or apologizing, she doubled down on her attacks. "I'm just asking the tough questions that need to be asked. This is journalism, Chaka. I'm not here to kiss your feet or pretend you're still at the peak of your career when clearly you're not." Chaka's voice rose, not in hysteria, but with the controlled power of someone who had found her breaking point and decided to stand her ground. "Tough questions? You call insulting a guest tough questions? You call attacking someone's character and legacy journalism? This isn't journalism, Deborah. This is cruelty, masquerading as professionalism." The cameras continued rolling, capturing every moment of what was becoming television history. Roberts, perhaps realizing that she was losing control of the situation, tried to regain her authority by raising her own voice. "I'm the host of this show, and I'll ask whatever questions I deem appropriate. If you can't handle real journalism, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews." That statement lit a fuse that had been burning throughout the entire interview. Chaka Khan, who had been the epitome of grace under pressure, finally let loose with the full force of her personality. "Real journalism? You wouldn't know real journalism if it walked up and introduced itself to you. Real journalists do research. Real journalists show respect for their guests. Real journalists ask questions that serve the public interest, not questions designed to humiliate and tear down." Roberts stood up as well, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. She was no longer the composed news anchor. She was someone who had been thoroughly called out and was scrambling to save face. "How dare you question my journalistic integrity? I've been in this business for decades. I've interviewed presidents, world leaders, Nobel Prize winners. I don't need lessons in journalism from a singer whose best days are behind her." The insult was so egregious, so completely unprofessional, that it seemed to echo through the studio. But instead of breaking Chaka down, it seemed to energize her. Her response came with the force of decades of experience dealing with racism, sexism, and industry politics. "A singer? A singer whose best days are behind her? Let me educate you about this singer, since you clearly didn't bother to do any research before this interview. I've been a trailblazer for over 5 decades. I've broken barriers, set standards, and influenced countless artists who are dominating the charts right now." Roberts interrupted, her voice getting shrill. "That's ancient history. Ancient history? Chaka's voice boomed with indignation. My music is still being sampled today. Artists still cover my songs. I'm still selling out venues around the world. You want to talk about relevance? I'm more relevant than half the people you probably fawn over on this show. The tension had reached a boiling point. Roberts, clearly flustered and out of her depth, made one final attempt to reassert control. This interview is over. Security, but Chaka wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. Her voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded stages around the world and wasn't about to be silenced by a disrespectful television host. Oh no, Deborah, you wanted this conversation. You pushed and pushed and pushed. Now you're going to hear what I have to say. Security personnel began moving toward the set, but Chaka Khan stood her ground with the poise of someone who had faced down much bigger challenges than an entitled news anchor. Her voice filled the studio with a power that made everyone freeze in their tracks. You called security on me? On me? Because I refused to sit quietly while you disrespected everything I've worked for? This is exactly what's wrong with media today. You think you can tear people down without consequences. Roberts was visibly shaking now, her carefully constructed professional image crumbling before the cameras. She pointed at Chaka with an accusatory finger. You're being completely unprofessional. This is a news program, not your personal therapy session. Chaka laughed, but it wasn't a laugh of humor. It was the laugh of someone who had just heard something so ridiculous that it bordered on the absurd. Unprofessional? I'm being unprofessional? You spent this entire interview trying to tear me down, questioning my relevance, mocking my career, and insulting my legacy. And I'm the one being unprofessional? The security guards had reached the edge of the set but seemed hesitant to actually approach Chaka Khan. Even they could sense that something bigger than a simple interview gone wrong was happening here. Roberts tried to regain control by addressing the cameras directly. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this outburst. Miss Khan seems unable to handle legitimate questions about her career. That statement was the match that lit the final explosion. Chaka Khan turned to face the cameras herself, speaking directly to the viewing audience with a clarity and power that cut through all the chaos. Legitimate questions? America. You just watched this woman spend 20 minutes trying to humiliate me on national television. You saw her question my worth, mock my career, and treat me with blatant disrespect. Is this what passes for journalism now? Roberts tried to interrupt, but Chaka's voice overpowered her completely. No, Deborah, you've had your say. Now it's my turn. I came here today to talk about my music, my tour, and my love for my fans. Instead, I got ambushed by someone who clearly has her own agenda. The studio was in complete chaos now. Producers were frantically trying to figure out whether to cut to commercial or keep rolling. The camera operators, sensing they were witnessing television history, kept filming. Roberts made one last desperate attempt to salvage the situation. You're making a fool of yourself, Chaka. The whole world is watching you have a meltdown. Chaka Khan turned back to Roberts with a look that could have melted steel. When she spoke, her voice was calm but carried the weight of absolute finality. A meltdown? No, Deborah. This is what dignity looks like when it refuses to be trampled on. This is what happens when someone with integrity stands up to a bully. And yes, the whole world is watching. They're watching you reveal exactly who you really are. She began moving toward the edge of the set, her microphone still live and picking up every word. You know what the real tragedy is here? You had the opportunity to sit across from a living legend, someone who has contributed immeasurably to American culture. And instead of celebrating that, instead of asking meaningful questions, you chose to tear me down. That says everything about you and nothing about me. Roberts, now completely flustered and red-faced, shouted after her, You can't just walk out. This is my show. Chaka paused at the edge of the set and turned back one final time. Her voice carried across the studio with perfect clarity. Your show? This stopped being your show the moment you decided to use it as a platform for cruelty instead of journalism. And yes, I can walk out. I have that right. I have the right to refuse to be disrespected. She looked directly into the main camera, speaking to the millions of viewers who would see this moment. To everyone watching, thank you for your love and support over the years. My tour dates are available on my website. Come see what a real performance looks like. Come see what passion and professionalism actually sound like. Then she addressed Roberts one final time, her voice carrying the authority of 5 decades in the entertainment industry. And Deborah, when you get home tonight and think about what happened here, remember this. I am Chaka Khan. I have nothing left to prove to you or anyone else. But you You just showed the entire world who you really are underneath that professional facade. With that, she unclipped her microphone, placed it carefully on the chair, and walked off the set with her head held high. The cameras followed her until she disappeared through the studio doors, leaving behind a stunned silence and one very rattled news anchor. Robert stood alone on the set, her face flushed with embarrassment and anger, trying desperately to regain her composure as producers scrambled to figure out how to end the segment. The woman who had started the interview with such confidence and superiority now looked small and exposed. The interview that was supposed to be a simple promotional appearance had become something much bigger. It had become a masterclass in dignity, a lesson in standing up to bullies, and a reminder that legends earn their status not just through their art, but through their character. Chaka Khan had walked into that studio as a music legend. She walked out as something even more powerful. She walked out as someone who had shown the world that respect isn't negotiable, that dignity isn't optional, and that sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply refuse to accept unacceptable treatment. The footage would become legendary, shared and discussed for years to come, not just as an example of an interview gone wrong, but as a perfect example of how to maintain your dignity when someone tries to take it away from you.